By having the courage to end the relationship, you chose self-respect and healing. That wounded part of you needs self-compassion. Hi, this is Jim Brillon. Welcome to this YouTube channel where we discuss all things mental health. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed clinical professional counselor in Orange County, California. What I'm going to be talking about today is something that I call my letter to your wounded self, or your letter to your healing self. I've worked with many people who are building back their sense of self and learning to recover from a history of toxic relationship, or maybe series of damaging relationships where they've experienced abuse. So I'm talking to a survivor of relationship abuse right now, whether that's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. You know, this is what happens when somebody's in a relationship with a high conflict personality style or an antagonistic personality style. Somebody with high spectrum narcissism, or essentially a person who's emotionally immature. When you've lived through abuse from somebody that gaslights and calls names, projects, accuses, shames, all of those different things, they have a real damaging and accumulative effect on a person. And overcoming that, learning how to take back your sense of self, how to set boundaries, how to communicate limits with people, is often a lifelong journey. The letter I'm referring to is an actual letter that I wrote for a client that I've been working with. This client has left a toxic relationship where he was verbally, emotionally abused, and has done pretty well, but falls back into doubting himself and wondering if it was really that bad, questioning themselves and whether they made too much of it, always ruminating about the other person in the relationship. And you know, one session he asked me if I could write something that he could read so that he could trust that he's actually doing the right thing, that he's moving in the right direction. So I wrote this letter for him, and I'd like to share it with people who are in the same place where they're kind of struggling with that ruminating after ending a toxic relationship. You know, there are two particular psychological traps that people get stuck in after ending a damaging relationship, and one of them is what I call if only. Wondering, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that, if only, you know, you get trapped in your own ruminations trying to figure out how to change the past. The other one is what if. You know, what if they change and get healthy for the next person? You know, what if? And when you're trapped in that rumination and doubting yourself, it's really hard to move on. Now, there's lots of other things involved with this too. You know, people might have traits of OCD. Highly anxious people really struggle with ruminations. But I wanted to go through some of the bullet points of this letter. And the first statement in this letter to your wounded self is this: what you experienced in that relationship was abuse. Period. It was abuse. Often people go back and forth. Was it really abuse? Was it really that bad? And yes, when you have been lied to, when you've been shamed, when you've been either physically or verbally assaulted, that's abuse. Period. You didn't deserve it, and you did not cause it. Often when people are trapped in a dysfunctional relationship, they end up taking responsibility for the other person's words, feelings, behaviors. You didn't deserve abuse, nobody does, and you didn't cause it. Now, every relationship, you know, both people have parts that they contribute to dysfunction, but you don't cause another person to abuse you. By having the courage to end the relationship, you chose self-respect and healing. That's something important to remind yourself of, is that you're making a conscious choice to move forward with my life instead of staying trapped in abuse that actually might feel very familiar but is unhealthy. It's your healthy self that is beginning to emerge from the trauma, the gaslighting, and the abuse. You need to continue to nurture your healthy self. Another thing to remind yourself is that you've been told a lot of lies about yourself, and you've been shamed by somebody that you cared for. That's wrong, and that's betrayal. The part of you that slips back into doubt is your wounded, traumatized self. And that's the part you're continuing to heal. It's really helpful often when we can look at different aspects of ourselves as parts. We have a healthy self. That's a part of us that wants to continue to grow and flourish. We have wounded parts that stay trapped. We have frightened parts. So thinking in terms of the parts of us that we want to nurture, heal, and promote, I think can be really helpful in understanding some of the conflicting ways that we feel sometimes. That wounded part of you needs self-compassion, it needs encouragement, and it needs for you to start talking back to your own internal critic. When things go bad, many of us have a very strong internalized critic that starts talking to us and starts telling us all kinds of bad things about ourselves. We all have a default set of thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, what we're worthy of, what we're not worthy of, and when something goes wrong or things don't work out the way we want them to, that's when that inner critic starts talking. Have you ever noticed that your inner critic isn't bothering you when you're at Disneyland having a great day or having a great day at the beach? But when something goes wrong, that's when our inner critic starts talking to us. And we need to start talking back to that internal critic. And especially that wounded part of yourself needs you to stand up for yourself and talk back to that internalized critic. The last thing in the letter is this. You are taking your power back. Trust yourself. You deserve love and respect. It can be really scary for somebody to stand up and start to take their power back by setting limits and boundaries and learning to listen to your own intuition rather than talking yourself out of it one more time. And especially if you've not been raised in a family system where autonomy and agency were promoted, it can be a real struggle to even believe that I have the right to determine for myself what I want in my own life. And learning how to trust that gut instinct or that intuition is a continued struggle sometimes. Part of that is because our intuition is often confused with our cognitive biases and our projections. So we have to learn how to tell the difference. But essentially, you deserve love and respect. And that's not something that you have to earn. You deserve that because you're a human being. And learning that, or sometimes remembering that, is the end goal of the journey of healing. I hope this letter was helpful to you. I'm curious if you have questions or comments about it. And if the videos are helpful, I encourage you to like and subscribe and sign up for notifications so I can let you know when there's more material coming out. Until the next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Bye-bye.